start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of both the County Borough Council's Governance and Audit. Normally on 2 p.m. It's about 2:10 on the 23rd of October. A hybrid meeting. Apologies for the late start. There's some sort of technical issues. I can notice I'm not in the chamber today. We're in. It's a bit snug, but everyone is very welcome. Today's meeting will be recorded, and the recording will be broadcast on the authority's website and may be used for training purposes by the Democratic Services Department. So it says here everyone will be in view of the camera. Not sure if that's true, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes, and let's get on with the meeting, shall we? Apologies for absence. I've got two, I think, as far as I'm aware. That's Councillor Leif Turvey and Councillor Claire Jones. Other than that, we have a very packed room. We'll introduce everybody else as we get into the meeting. Declarations of interests is item 2. Members are reminded their personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Finance Act 1982, the Council Act 2000, the Council Constitution, and Members Code of Conduct. Are there any declaration of interest anyone wishes to raise? I said a lot, but nothing, didn't I? First, substantive paper, item 3 is agenda item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting, which is on Monday, the 11th of September 2023. We are here for accuracy. Not going to go through page by page, but if anyone wants to shout out when any inaccuracies spring to minds, and please say so. Well, it's actually far easier to look over the book here. I don't have to string my neck to look along the rows. This is excellent. Thank you. Any matters arising from that paper that's not on the action log? Just one from me on that. On minute 230, it talks about the Governance and Audit Committee's draft annual report. It was resolved that agreement to be given for the Governance and Audit Committee annual report for the financial year 22-23 to be presented to Council. I'm led to believe that hasn't happened yet, and there's a process that needs to happen, I believe, Andrew, which involves going to CMT and then to Council. Am I right?
Yes, Chair, we'll check the process in that. We just wanted to make sure that the members were happy with your draft report, your annual draft report, and then we'll get on the agenda for Council to feed in, which will either be in November or December. And we'll check the arrangements with CMT as well.
Okay.
The minutes of Governance and Audit Committee go through to the Council anyway, so they will be aware of it. But I think it would be useful if we formally presented your report to them, just to make sure that they're happy with it as well.
Okay, so I'm lined up to attend Council to present that.
You are, Chair, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to looking at that. Okay, agenda item 4 is the Governance and Audit Committee action log. The few outstanding ongoing issues. Helen, should I turn to you to focus through them?
Yeah, so as of today, we have 6 actions on the log, and I'll quickly take you through each action and provide you with an update. Item 1, this relates to a request from members that risk workshops and informal training is provided. However, this will stay on the log until the vacant head of performance post has been filled. Item 2, this relates to a column being added to the corporate risk register to highlight which cabinet and scrutiny committee owns which risk. I've been informed by Matthew Rivers that this action has been addressed, but as we update the log in retrospect, it'll remain on the log until it's evidence the Governance and Audit Committee.
Thank you.
Item 3, this relates to a request that temporary housing officers give a verbal update on temporary housing statistics. I think we might mark this one as completed going forward and probably take it off the log. Item 4, this action relates to Audit Wales providing a link to the building safety report on their website. This has been actioned and the log has been updated to reflect this.
Yeah, emailed out the report.
Yeah, on the day of the last Governance and Audit Committee, so it actioned instantly. Item 5, this relates to a request that the Head of Finance provides Governance and Audit Committee members with further information in relation to the regional bus £60,000 overspend. At the time of collating the action log, the Head of Finance was in the process of obtaining this information.
So turn either Steve or Adele to fill us in.
Yeah, if I could give an update there, Chair, is that
what we've basically got is that £60,000 underspend, which was shown, isn't quite right, because in the actual accounts and the draft accounts, there is a little error there, because what it basically is that we act as a host organisation for that money and for just other authorities as well. That £60,000 underspend, which is shown, is in respect of another authority's allocation. So it's not as if we've underspent. So we've just wrongly shown it as part of the narrative in the accounts or just in the draft report. So the actual accounting is correct, but
Okay.
it's showing that it's showing another authority's allocation as underspent. Well, that should be another authority's, to get my.
Okay, that's helpful to understand.
Drift.
That's helpful to understand. The numbers are correct. It's just the narrative.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because this was somebody flagged this in the last meeting. I can't recall who flagged it, but hopefully we're comfortable with that answer. I don't know who raised the question. I can't recall. There you go, down.
Yeah, so
Okay, thank you.
And finally, item number 6, this is a request to provide a definition of the internal audit opinions on the annual governance statement. This will be actioned in readiness for the approval of the final AGS in November, December.
Terrific, thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Helen, that's really helpful. Next item 5 is a verbal update on temporary housing statistics. We have the pleasure of the two Suzannes, so in the comfy chairs in the I don't, yeah, you don't have to come join us, but over to you to give us a quick update.
Okay, thank you all. So as a homelessness service, we do continue to see an unprecedented demand on the service over the last couple of months, and probably from the start of COVID, when Welsh Government made those legislative changes. For a while, the figures did carry on quite stagnant, but over the last 2 quarters, we started to see a spike again. So in Q1, our brand new homeless presentations were 131, 117 of which were single people. That rose again in Q2 of this year, up from 131 to 180, and again predominantly single people, which equated for 168 of that 180 presentations. Out of those, 68 of those were offered placements in temporary accommodation. So as it stands on the 18th of October, we have about 96 households, not persons, in B&B and our 9 units within our houses of multiple occupation. So overall, that's round about a 37% increase in Q2 from Q1. So obviously it is some concern that those figures are starting to spike again. I mean, much of the pressures that are just around the the usual domestic homelessness presentations. On top of that, we've got the cost of living crisis. The increase in mortgage rates has resulted in some landlords wanting to increase the rent, so making that affordable for a lot of people, particularly those on welfare benefits, and hence being served notice. And obviously landlords, some of them are leaving the market, despite Welsh Government saying there's no evidence of that for Rent Smart Wales. But we are certainly seeing evidence locally that some of these sort of unforeseen circumstances then and consequences of the Renting Homes Act, that landlords are leaving the market because of the extra legislation and the more difficulties it is for them now to evict tenants for no fault issues, really. So it's a combination, and also on top of that, we've got certain asylum seeker dispersal programmes, which again is putting more pressure on the homelessness system generally. We'll go into a bit of detail, and Susie will say in terms of what new developments we've got coming forward. But in terms of looking at alternative temporary accommodation, as you may be aware, that white paper was published by Welsh Government on the 10th of this month, which proposes a lot of changes to the Housing Wales Act in terms of homelessness. So it's likely that they will stop the use of B&B totally, except in cases of public health emergencies, and possibly looking to remove the priority need and intentionality tests as well. So it's kind of going back to what it was during COVID. So if that is successful and that goes through, then it's probably going to put even greater pressures on local authorities going forward, which is obviously a concern. So we are looking at alternatives in terms of other supported accommodation provisions and looking at increasing our HMOs. So we are working with a private landlord, and we've got probably 2 coming on board very, very shortly. And we're still doing our scoping exercising to look at other suitable properties, globally. I suppose the additional sort of pressure on the local authority in using B&Bs, as we know, they're not all suitable and don't meet the suitability of accommodation order. But we've got no contracts in place. So at any time, the proprietors of those B&Bs sort of could pull the rug then. And then we're left with looking for alternatives, which at this point in time, we simply just don't have. And that's probably it, really. In terms of the operational, as I said, it is just pressure after pressure, and Susie will just explain a bit now in terms of the additional sort of funding that we're looking at the moment to increase the accommodation longer term.
Thank you. Susan.
Yes, so in terms of, as Susan outlined, the pressures are unprecedented and unrelenting and have been since 2020. And there are further pressures on the local authorities in meeting quotas in terms of our strategic migration dispersal as well. So that, it's extremely challenging given the current context in which we're working. What we are trying to do is obviously help increase our developments, our affordable housing developments, and increasing the broad range of accommodation in line with our local needs at scale and pace. So we're doing that through significant Welsh Government funding. So we've allocated our PDP, our Programme Development Plan for affordable housing in full of £5.7 million per year for the next 3 years. We're also asking, we've submitted a request for additional slippage monies of between 7 and 10 million just for this financial year for Merthyr. We've recently, in the last few weeks, been approved of a notional allocation of 1.26 million through the Transitional Accommodation Capital Programme, TACP. That's specifically to look at quick wins, so buying back properties, market properties to rent out quite quickly, and look at increasing the range of supported accommodation that we've got locally, which again does come with challenges because along with the capital, we need the revenue to fund that support of the staff for the people who are not quite ready to move into their own independent homes. We are, as Susan alluded to, we're looking at increasing the range of houses of multiple occupation. And I think we did update in the last meeting. It had been approved at council. We've gone some way through that at the moment. We've approved an additional 3 to 5 since the last meeting, and we're looking at another 3 or 4 at the moment that we're starting to consult on. And we are looking at a larger scale supported accommodation that we absolutely need quite quickly to try and help bring these figures down. As Sue mentioned, I think we're trying in all ways to try and prioritise the quicker wins for maximum impact for us in terms of reducing our over reliance on B&B. And the developments that have happened or grown in pace now since COVID are coming on stream. So we are seeing quite a number of new developments that will come on board over the next 6 months, all of which are helping. But the presentations at the front end just aren't slowing down. So as much progress we're making, we're taking sort of two steps forward, 1 back. But there's lots going on in terms of trying to support that case. But as you can see, the numbers are just unrelenting currently.
Thank you, Susan. Just to kind of put it in a little bit of context, from my perspective, I mean, this isn't unique to Merthyr council area. It's a Wales-wide, UK-wide issue. Do you talk to and work with other local authorities, particularly RCT, etc., neighbouring authorities, and do you sort of share the burdens of sort of locating people?
Locating people, I suppose the pressures are, the same across the piece. If there are specific requirements why somebody couldn't be placed within the local authority area, then there are partnership arrangements and bespoke arrangements that can happen to accommodate needs. And we do work really closely with both our relationship manager within Welsh Government and our colleagues and equivalents in other local authorities. I think the difficulty just is there isn't enough single people's accommodation, and that's across the piece, unfortunately. We do look to share best practice through our relationship manager, have a look if any other authorities are doing anything differently. But I think one of the key issues specifically for Merthyr and some of the other local authorities, smaller local authorities, are the disproportionate quantum of those with multiple and complex needs, the higher levels of poverty and the wider sort of socio-economic influences that are really hindering us on a local level day to day.
Okay, thank you, and I guess we've got the item further down the agenda, but I guess this is somewhere that sits somewhere near the top of our risk register right now in organisation. Okay, well. Oh, I'm tempted to say we're here now, so let's stay here.
Yeah,
and let's not disrupt it again. But thanks very much. Great, that's really helpful, Jeff, for the update. That yeah, of course, it's something that's whether this committee continues to look at and scrutinise and support, or whether it's something more suitable for a housing scrutiny committee. I don't know. I'd look for others in terms of democratic services. What would be the best route? Perhaps Steve, you've been an expert on this. Housing would sit under.
Housing would sit under Alan's area.
Yeah.
I would understand. So
there's a scrutiny committee covering that.
yes, there should be. Yes. So there is a scrutiny. There's public protections, housing, public protection scrutiny.
Regeneration.
Yeah, we're getting into the weeds a little bit here, and this is probably a scrutiny type topic, if truth be told, isn't it? So I don't know whether it's currently on their work program. If it isn't, I would perhaps suggest that they could look at this area, and perhaps that's a referral we do through democratic services, I guess. Okay. Thank you, Gary. That's really helpful, although it's encouraging those works we're doing, but not so encouraging that, as you say, there's as fast as you clear the pile, another pile people present. It's unfortunate, and it's a real symptom of the world we live in nowadays. So thank you, guys, for the work you're doing. Thank you. Any other questions for Steve? Sure. Definitely.
Thank you. Guys, just in relation to the grant money, you said it's been made available to buy market properties. Who will own these properties, and are you working with a registered social landlord?
Yeah, so we're working with Merthyr Valley Homes and Merthyr Housing Association as a two developing community landlords that we work with currently. And we're looking at void properties and market homes, and the ownership would be with the community landlord. So they would purchase and it sort of turn around pretty quickly in terms of getting them ready and get them back out there for social housing rental and within 6 months.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. I think Martin just mentioned this is covered by Regen scrutiny, and I think in January we've got a report coming about empty properties, and it'd be really interesting to see how many empty properties have come back, and especially the ones that have been empty 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Yeah. I don't know if they're actually coming back, and that would help you guys an awful lot, to be honest. So you feed into that. One other question, one other thing as well, it's not a question, I did ask before if you guys could send out the numbers of people they're on band 1, band 2 and band 3 if possible, so that we can manage the expectations of other residents who want to move properties, bearing in mind people that are homeless are priority, but it just helps us to manage the expectations of those residents.
Helpful. Thank you, Declan. Yeah, sorry.
I know this is probably for the other scrutiny committee, but something I've been wondering is, do you know when you put together the HMOs, the social housing properties being brought back to use, with all those plans we've got at the moment, is there a position of equilibrium in terms of the numbers we have to house and the opportunities to house them that you can see, or is that still way out of kilter?
We're still a way off because of the rising numbers. I think the numbers that stay stagnant, we're getting a real way towards that. The developments, I think I'm happy to do. We're in the process of doing the exercise to have a look at with what we've got in train in terms of our development programme, in terms of the TACP additional programmes. We're on track about 40 additional units just by March. And then that would further increase throughout the next financial year. But given the numbers at the front end, we're still, we're getting a way forward. But as the numbers are rising the other end, we're not you know, we're getting pushed back, so.
And have we got, sorry, Chair, have we got an idea of those increasing numbers, what the rationale is behind them? Do we?
Yeah, so we have to undertake returns to Welsh Government on a quarterly basis, and we run them monthly to have a look at any trends, just to make sure that there's nothing that we can do better in terms of frontline investigation, etc. The majority are familial breakdowns, large numbers of adult children living at home, can't get on the property ladder, can't access the private rented sector. You know, it's to be honest, the trends haven't changed that much, apart from, as Sue was alluded to, larger numbers of families now receiving no-fault evictions from private landlords as an unintended consequence of the Rented Homes Wales Act that came in December. People renting in the private sector having to leave because market rents are going up at a rate that they can't afford, wider cost of living pressures, and, you know, increased property levels and issues within Merthyr. So we are disproportionately affected, but, you know, not too much so than our other local authority partners, really.
So those socio-economic issues that you raised earlier, that we got a little or no control over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the two Suzannes? Okay, thank you for your time today. It's been really informative as always, and we'll need to agree whether this committee continues engage in this or whether we hand the reins over to the scrutiny committee. I suspect that's probably the more sensible route to make sure we've done it today. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brent, I can't see you there. If Brent, if you've got any questions, you either put your yellow hand up or just wave furiously at me and I'll spot you again.
Thank you, Chair. I will do.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6, which is colleagues to my left, Audit Wales team. The first item of their business is the detailed audit plan, as opposed to the outline plan, which gave some minutes ago.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah. So, afternoon, everyone. Before I get into the detailed plan, I thought I'd do some quick introductions again. So, I'm Alice King. I'm your new financial audit manager. I came to the meeting on the 11th of September. I'll be presenting the detailed audit plan for you today. To my right is Sarah Jane Byrne. She is my colleague who is your performance audit manager. So she'll be taking you through some of the performance elements of the report we're presenting today. And sat in the naughty corner behind you is Deb Wood. So Deb is taking over from Neil Pollives as the audit lead for financial audit. So Deb's here today just to observe with me, and I might throw her a question if I can't answer it. But yeah, so introductions to Deb's as well to the council.
Welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, as the chair correctly pointed out, today we're going to present to you our detailed audit plan. So as I mentioned in the last meeting, we now have a 2-stage process for producing plans, an outline high-level plan, which came to, I think, in June, and then this detailed plan. And that's following the introduction of ISO 315. So I'm going to presume that you've all had a chance to read our report, but I will take you through some of the key sections. And that will be the material, the significant risks, audit attention. I'll pass over to Sarah Jane then for the performance audit section, and then briefly touch on the audit fees and timetable. Please feel free to ask me questions at the end on anything that's contained in the report, but I'd be happy to take them. So starting on page, and scroll down now. Sorry, bear with me. Page 18 of your, no, excuse me, page 19 of your agenda pack. We take you through your concept of materiality. So just to remind you, we don't audit every pound of your accounts. We apply our materiality threshold. So based on the draft accounts, your overall level of materiality is 2.6 million this year, which is 1% of your gross expenditure. There are some areas of specific interest on page 20, which include senior officer remuneration, which we apply a £1,000 materiality, and then relate to party disclosures, which we apply 5,000 for transactions with officers or elected members, and 1 million to subsidiaries and associate companies. So they're areas of interest for us where we have that lower threshold. Moving on then to page 21 of the pack. This is where we have detailed our significant financial statement risks following our audit planning work. So we have one risk here, which you will see every year. It's the risk of management override of controls, and this risk we deem present in all of our entities. And we, as such, view it as a significant risk. Our approach to auditing this hasn't changed from last year, where we'll look at testing a number of journals, reviewing the accounting estimates for bias, and also looking at the rationale for any significant transactions outside the normal course of business. Moving on then, we have our other areas of focus. These are some more specific risks that we've picked up for Merthyr. Having said that, the first two there, the valuation of land and buildings and valuation of pension fund net liabilities, are affecting many of the local authorities across Wales. So the valuation of land and buildings, we've included as an audit risk for two aspects. The first one is because it is a significant estimate based on the opinions of the valuation team. And it could be subject to a high level of subjectivity and needing specialists' input and management experts. We have then the second element of this risk, which is then the accounting adjustments for revaluations can be complex. And so we deem this to be a risky area for yourselves. So our approach to addressing this risk is to look at both the valuation side and also then to ensure that the accounting adjustments have been made appropriately. Did you have a question there? I can see you.
I don't know if it's for you or it's for Steve or Adele. It says in the note here, it says assets are required to be revalued every 5 years. The value changes year on year. I'm just going to ask, what's our process for revaluation? Is it a rolling program or is it a big hit once every X number of years?
Yeah, it's a rolling programme. So we do 20% every year, but we do the top 10 valued assets as well. And because of some of the issues from last year's audit, we've included more assets this year, so that the material uncertainty level is gone.
Okay, so it's 20%, but more than 20%.
Yeah.
And all the big ones.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
So just to add to what Adele mentioned, that because of the large changes in building costs, assets under the BRC valuation method last year, where we asked local authorities to look at whether these needed to be reconsidered outside of the rolling programme because they were materially incorrect. I think at Merthyr you choose to revalue more in your rolling programme to cover up that risk rather than applying what essentially is indexation, which relies on the fixed indexes.
I wonder, Alice, whether, given this was a material issue for a number of local authorities last year, have you put any guidance out as to what council should be doing to manage this area this year? Because it did cause the hold up of a number of accounts being sent off loss.
So we haven't reissued any guidance. The guidance still stands from last year that we provided, but we haven't chosen to put anything out new for this year.
Okay, so we learned the lesson last year.
Hopefully.
That's nice. Not done the room. That's good. Sorry.
Okay, so moving on to the second risk on page 22, it's the valuation of your pension fund net liability. Again, we've included this as it is a significant estimate and requires the reliance on management experts being your actuaries. Again, given the outside influence of investment returns, etc., we've included that as a risk here for you. But we will be working with management experts and also auditor experts to address this risk through our audit work.
So two small questions. Who's our pension scheme?
You're in RCTs, RCTs.
And the auditors of that pension scheme are?
The auditors of the pension is Audit Wales. Yeah.
So when you say audit experts, you meant yourselves?
No, so it's a bit more complicated than that. We employ PwC to act as an auditor expert. They review the work of the actuary at each pension fund and provide us with a report which we can place assurance on.
There you go. Thank you, Alice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's two more specific areas we've drawn out of our planning work, and they're on page 23. So first is capital commitments, which is a disclosure note to the accounts, which lays out the capital commitments for future years. And then also we've included the cash flow statement. So both of these have been included due to previous audit errors from last year. And so therefore we have deemed them to be significantly risky enough to include in our audit plan for you.
Okay, thank you.
So now I'm going to hand over to Sarah Jane to take you through the planned performance audit work.
Just quickly before we do that, can we talk about page 24,
Yeah,
which is timetable on accounts?
of course, yeah.
So the intention is for the accounts to be finalised and signed off by the end of November as it currently stands.
It is, yes.
Confidence levels?
Look at Deb's now. I knew I brought you for a reason, Deb. No, we're progressing really well through the audit work. We are in what we refer to our final audit work rather than the planning audit work, progressing well. So I believe that we're still on track for the end of November as it currently stands.
Okay, thank you. The reason I ask that is because Colin and I were at the Governance Audit Committee Chairs meeting in London Wells a couple of weeks ago, where one of your colleagues talked about there being local authorities being brigade into a couple of different categories, some of which have got a November deadline and some have got later deadline.
Yes.
So we are firmly in the deadline of whatever the category number is, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We are.
Yes, so the way that local authorities have been categorised this year is based on their performance last year and whether they provided us with their accounts on time, which in Murphy you did. So you are in one of the higher priority categories based on that. And so we are working to an end of November deadline for yourselves.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, so helpful to us.
Working well with the Devon meeting.
Yes, very well. Yeah.
I could add chair as well.
Sure.
Just, and we were going to look for special council on the 29th of November. And then the special governance and audit committee would be the Monday, the 27th. So it's the 27th and the 29th we had as the provisional dates for just the audit committee and the special council.
So committee members, mark your diaries, calendars with Monday, the 27th of November, a special governance audit committee dealing with the accounts. And that's in addition to our next regular governance audit committee, which is the 4th of December, the following week. That will be 2 weeks.
Okay, so just in terms of performance audit work, so hopefully you'll be familiar with what we call our assurance and risk assessment. So we do that every year. So this is really, we look at services, we look at arrangements to understand where the audit risks are and also help shape our future kind of work programs. So we look at that both from a proper arrangement perspective, but also the extent to which you're applying the sustainable development principle. We've got 2 thematic reviews this year. So thematic reviews, you'll remember, are those that we do at all 22 councils. And I'm sure you won't be surprised to see that we've got something on financial sustainability there. It's obviously been a focus for us for some time, but it shouldn't be ratcheted up recently. So there will be some work on that. And the other thematic review is on commissioning and contract management. We haven't firmed up timescales of those yet. As soon as we do, we'll update you through the quarterly work programme update. And then the local work at Merthyr this year is going to be around performance management. I think this is likely to be in the spring now, but again, we'll update you on that in terms of the scope of that work and the timescales. And then I guess we've got the grants. I don't know if there's anything particularly you want to say on the grants, but then we've got the fee. I know we touched on the fee more broadly, but it gives you the specifics there on page 27. You'll be aware of the reasons why there's been an increase. I know that the Auditor General wrote out, and I think we discussed this back in June. And then finally, the audit team. I know, as I said, there's been a couple of changes on the financial audit side. Performance audit side has stayed the same, but Alice and I happen to take any questions. Obviously, it talks about some of it's quite standard around audit quality and the arrangements we have to ensure all of that. Any questions?
Any questions for audit colleagues? Now we have them in the room. The very obvious one for me is I still struggle to see how audit fees can possibly justify going up by 15% all the time when everyone is feeling the pinch under budget settlements. This authority settlements are going to be below inflation. Other organisations are actually having budget cuts. There's no discussion here about individual sort of cost savings within audit world. I'm kind of disappointed by that. I know these are across the board, but I think it's the time when pressures on authorities to deliver statutory services feels like quite an excessive increase.
So if I could come back on that,
Sure.
You might be aware we're currently out to consultation on our sort of fees for next year. Within that, it talks quite a lot about the things that we're doing to try to make efficiencies. We're also having that challenge. So we're looking, we've changed offices, we've moved to different offices, we're looking at, travel reduction, all those kind of things. We haven't given staff, low inflationary uplifts as well. So that's something we've had to deal with. So that definitely gives you a bit more context around all of that. So if you haven't seen that, you know, we can share the link with you, but it is on our website. So that certainly touches on some of the things that you've just mentioned, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I've been in another capacity. I responded to that, but that's really helpful. Thanks. Okay, thank you, everyone. That's really helpful. Let's go on and we get to agenda item 7, which is the update, I guess. Again, I was with you.
Yeah, so we'll take you through now our quarterly work programme update. So starting off, we have our annual audit summary, which we hope to provide you with in early 2024. The last one was issued in February 2023. Moving on then to the financial audit work. So as we've discussed, the financial audit of your accounts for 22-23 is well underway and aiming for that November sign off. And then we have the audit of grant claims and returns. So I think I mentioned in the last meeting that we had made a start on the teacher pension return and the national non-domestic rates return, both of which, if not complete, are very close to completion, which is good. The housing benefit work is due to start probably late November, early December currently. So we'll be in touch with the council to make arrangements about that. And then other grant work across Wales will be will start in January. So that's the timetable we're working to. And then...
Wrong obvious, thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned the typo that
24.
24, yes.
And then in terms of the performance audit side of things, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, our assurance and risk assessment work that tends to be ongoing throughout the year. And we have been keeping an eye on financial position, looking at sort of monitoring reports, that kind of thing. We did originally intend to do a specific piece of work around capital programme management. We've taken the decision recently that we won't do that as part of the 22-23 piece of work. But we just emphasise that's not because we don't think it's important. We haven't lost sight of it. We're just looking at how we go about it and how we fund it. So I'll come back to you once we know a bit more on that. But I didn't want to say, look, it's gone off the agenda completely. That is not the case. The other piece of work then, use of performance information. So that is a piece of work we're doing across all 22 councils. We recently issued the final report, and I think that's going to possibly come to the next audit committee, depending on the agenda, or perhaps the one after. I think we're in discussion with officers around that.
If it has been issued, it hasn't come out to council members yet, so I presume it'll be part of the agenda for the next week.
Okay.
Thanks.
And just say we will be doing a national report on that as well. And then the setting of wellbeing objectives, again, we finalised the report on that, and I understand discussions are ongoing again in terms of when that will come to committee. And then obviously as consideration of other arrangements, that's part and parcel of our sort of standard assurance and risk assessment work. And then we're doing a thematic review around unscheduled care. So reports will be coming out shortly. There's obviously across the piece. And then we're also doing a thematic review on digital, and this is the piece of work we're doing across all 22 councils, and we're currently clearing that report with the council. So that should be finalised fairly imminently, hopefully. Obviously then in terms of this year, I touched on that really through the audit plan. And the rest of the report really touches on some of the local government studies and national studies and things like that. You might have seen recently, it's mentioned in there about the teachers, cover and things like that. I think we recently published that report within the last day or so. And the report also touches on Eston and CIW's work programme as well. But happy to take any questions at all.
Thank you, really helpful and comprehensive paper, actually. Questions for our colleagues?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I was just wondering, are you if you're able to sort of work alongside internal audit teams and how much reliability there is on their work, and possibly going back to first comment about cost savings. I know we've covered that already, but I'm wondering if there's any more efficiencies maybe of working together, I suppose. I know it's different audits, but just wondering what your comments are on that.
Being there from your side, not
Yeah. And so from a financial audit perspective, the auditing standard for placing reliance on the work of others is very prescriptive and quite time intensive. So actually looking at the work internal audit do, having to place reliance, it would require quite a lot of work on our side, and we don't see that making any efficiencies. So we don't use that as an approach on any of our audits across any of the sectors, just because we don't see it as an efficiency, and we haven't brought that into our audit approach at all. So we assess, or don't use the word assess, we review the work of internal audit to identify any potential risks in the council, and we obviously work closely with an internal audit, discuss risks at the council. We don't place reliance on their work.
I guess similar for us, really, what we would do is look at their programme. We have discussions to determine, what they were looking at. So, for example, if we knew they were going to be doing a piece of work on something, we might think about, well, let's see what they do first, and then we might take that into account. But that wouldn't prevent us necessarily from doing our own piece of work on it. But just to reassure you, those conversations happen. We don't work in complete isolation at all. We do have regular meetings, but also we don't kind of place reliance on their work per se.
Yeah, just on page 4, just looking, you've got in here the National Review of Care Planning for Children and People. We're expecting a publication in November. So is that still on track? Are we expecting that publication in the next month?
This is in terms of the CIW, as far as I'm aware, because they contributed to this update. So I haven't heard to say anything to the contrary. I will go back and check with my CIW colleague, but I understand that is on track for November. I will double check and let you know if it's any different, but as I said, they contributed to this particular update, so
Yeah, no
hopefully
problem.
they would have shared if it wasn't the case and amended the timepiece.
That's right, thank you.
Thanks. It's on page 40 again. I'm pretty sure it's not a football club pathway. It's stroke club stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And on a more substantive point on page 37, you talk about corporate joint committees as a new area of work for you guys and a new way of working for local authorities. It'll be really interesting. And again, picking up on Sue's point about sort of efficiencies. Part of the idea of corporate joint committees are to sort of, instead of things getting done 22 times, they get done 4 times. Is that the sort of scope of that work, is to look at sort of the potentials for efficiency savings across public sector environments?
No, the scope of that work was really just to get an initial understanding in terms of how those arrangements were being established. It was very early days. There are particular functions that the CJCs have to fulfil which are quite focused. Yeah. So they are around regional transport planning and strategic development planning and kind of economic well-being. So that work was really for us to get assurance in terms of those CJCs were putting in place those arrangements. That report, actually, the national report should be hopefully published in the next couple of weeks. And we did issue separate letters to each of the CJCs. So we looked at things like where they were with, those arrangements and the governance side of things, the extent to which they were putting in place arrangements to meet their wellbeing future generations. Because they're also named bodies under the Future Generations Act now. So it was really kind of a bit of a litmus initial kind of reflection in terms of where they're at. It didn't look at in terms of efficiency or anything like that. Yeah, definitely. And it was, and that is kind of one of the main conclusions, that they're very much in their infancy.
Yeah. So just thinking aloud here about governance. The CJCs are set up by representatives of the various, as the host, you know what I mean, the regions, local authorities. Mm-hmm. The governance of those kind of reports, and where would they report back to? Would you report back those findings on CJCs back to all of the local authorities within the CJC area?
The CJCs are separate legal entities in their own rights. So we would be reporting and have been reporting back to the CJCs, the corporate joint committees themselves. Obviously, it's up to those individual councils whether they want to share those, because obviously the individual kind of councils and the national park have a role in that. So there's nothing preventing them doing that. The CJCs are establishing their kind of scrutiny arrangements as well, which obviously provides a mechanism in terms of understanding where those are at. So, and there are representatives from council on some of those as well.
I think you head off my next question. Do they have a governance audit committee and a CJC?
Yes, but they don't have to have a scrutiny committee. They can use existing scrutiny committees, but some have chosen to set up like an overview and scrutiny committee. They don't have to have their own scrutiny.
Okay.
They do have to have a governance and audit committee.
That'll be an interesting read then. Okay.
With lay members as well.
Thank you, Senator. That's really helpful. Thank you. Any last questions? We'll give that one a good going over, and thank you for that. So we'll stay with external, whatever these external audit recommendations. Let me scroll over there. I'm going to turn, I think, to Safe and Neil to sort of lead this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Did you want to give a brief overview, Councillor Barry, or you?
Very fine.
All right, no problem. So, right, in response to the last Government and Audit Committee meeting I attended in April, we removed some of the progress of the historic recommendations, which date back to 2014-15. So there's an ongoing exercise, desktop exercise, to close any historic recommendations on our system. And our officers are still working on that to complete that exercise as soon as practically possible. Appendix 1 of the report itself shows progress against outstanding recommendations and proposals, and even more recent. And this is based on the progress as of September 2023. There have since been a few recommendations which have been loaded to our system, and we report on these in the next quarterly update of the next Governance and Audit Committee. In terms of our next steps, as we've identified in the report itself, monthly meetings will continue to be held with CMT, keep track of any outstanding recommendations or proposals we have, and to secure updates at those meetings where necessary. And we have now introduced as well within our system, BRAG reporting arrangement within the system. So this is in its infancy stage, but we're hoping that in the next report we provide to Governance and Audit, we'll have those BRAG definitions built in those monitoring reports. But hopefully that summary, along with the report itself, gives you a bit of a flavour in terms of where we're at in progress and against our external recommendations. But happy to take any questions at this point.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Before I open it, one other obvious point. I'm sure this is a mistake to call Audit Wales recommendations historic. I think they're historical. I can't recall many historic Audit Wales recommendations. There we go. Yeah, I think that my general takeaway from this was it was quite disappointing to see that there's quite a lot of old recommendations here which haven't been fully completed. And probably more than that, there wasn't an awful lot of detail there about the next steps, as you just mentioned. So that's helpful. That there's the next steps, the who, when, what, to actually get these closed off. So I think you mentioned that this report will go to CMT on a monthly basis now, and it'll come back to you on a regular basis until some of these are cleared away.
Yeah, so we rely on the responsible officers to actually make sure that these recommendations are updated and closed off. I'm almost the gatekeeper for the system, if you like. So we do chase up CMT on a monthly basis, and hopefully this new process as well, whereby we take this report to Governance and Audit Committee on a quarterly basis, will strengthen that, you know, and make sure we've got like a robust monitoring procedure in place. But as I said, you know, I will go back to CMT and SLT with those concerns. But as I said, this isn't me passing the buck.
No, of course.
But yeah, the onus, you know, to update those recommendations is purely on the responsible officer.
Yeah, I fully understand that, Safe. Anyway, absolutely wasn't. I'm going to go with the compiler here. You're the messenger in this process. I mean, there are named individuals here who in some cases aren't addressing these in the deadlines that should have been addressed. Some of these are a year and more out of date, and that's disappointing. And I guess what I would do is give more power to our elbow by saying there's a threat if these things aren't addressed, that individual officers might be asked to come and speak to the audit committee and explain why things aren't progressing as fast as they thought they were going to.
What I will say on that, Chair, if I may as well.
Yeah.
The issue we've got, and well, it's not an issue, but obviously some of these recommendations, or all of these recommendations, none of them come with a target date, which is understandable. So the end date is open to interpretation, if you like. Some may take longer than others to address. What we do as part of the preliminary update is put a year deadline on the system. And again, you rely upon the officer's intelligence and knowledge of that specific area to perhaps address an end date on that recommendation. So again, it might just be a lapse. You know, the explanation might just be that end date isn't perhaps realistic. But again, that is something we will go back to the officer and engage on.
That's what I'd like to see, really, is if it isn't going to be done by that 1 year hence date, then what's an honest assessment of how long it will take to get it addressed. So that'll be absolutely one of the things I'd like to see next time. Okay, thank you. Any questions aside from, and Neil is here now?
It's something that we could pick up in cabinet CMT, but it's quite a wide range. It goes across the authority. The portfolio members will be responsible for picking up with the directors the progress. The question, I suppose, is how cited are cabinet members and directors on this?
It's directors in the sort of main instance, I would say, Councillor Barry. So, as I say, the updates tend to go to CMT. But yeah, again, I suppose it's open to interpretation and open to CMT as to whether they feel it would be beneficial for the portfolio leads to be copied into this. I'm certainly happy to copy you into any correspondence on it.
I think if we copied in the portfolio leads, it would be just another level of governance from our perspective. And we're still keep an eye. I'm not saying it would solve any issues, and what Safer said is probably sort of more akin to the truth of it. But as you say, we can't help the portfolio and the site they're on. Yeah, what is important for the governance issue.
And you bring that back then in a couple of months' time. So you see quarterly, you said, so whenever our meeting in January, yes.
Yeah,
Yep, we have January, then, yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if I could just say, again, there are a couple of areas in there that we've got some future work on, which will obviously then, give you an overview as well. So I mentioned we're doing a review of performance management. There are a number of recommendations relating to performance management in there. So when we do that work, we'll be looking as well into what you've done in response to those.
That's really helpful. Sorry, I should have told you guys as well, just to sort of flag up things in your reports and your recommendations, I guess. So the process of actually closing them off is what exactly? The officers say they have done it. They report to us, they say they've done it. But you guys don't necessarily go back and look at those individual areas for a number of years potentially.
It depends, to be honest. We take a risk-based approach. It depends on what other work we've got on and whether we deem other areas to be, greater risk. So we do an element of follow-up work as part of our assurance and risk assessment process.
That's a catch-all, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So we might choose to, look at, I think, for example, we did some work around counter fraud, and I think last year we issued another letter around that. So that was following up around that. We've done follow-ups around safeguarding, that kind of thing as well. So we'll tend to take, a sort of risk-based approach around that. So we are cited, and we'll also use your mechanisms, obviously, like this, to get your assessment in terms of where you are.
So you've got my assessment of where I think we are. What's your assessment of where you think you are seeing this paper?
I think at the moment, obviously, what I would say, we haven't done detailed work on all of these areas for us to give you, a fair assessment in terms of where you're at. The key one we're interested in is performance management. So we will definitely be providing a report on that.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really helpful, thanks. Anybody else? Yeah, Jim.
Yeah, I'm just looking at page 57, Chair. Just a question around the net zero action plan. Just in terms of that, obviously there's been a request to extend till April 24. Now, is that in part due to the fact that the programme manager wasn't appointed till February, or is there another reason why that has to be extended?
I think, again, it's difficult to answer on behalf of Chair, but I think from what you gather, it's partly the reason you say in terms of that late appointment of the manager. And they've recently obviously published their plan, etc., in relation to that. So I think it's just a bit of an extension on the time. And as I say, Councillor Scrim, in terms of when we first have these discussions, it tends to be a year from the publication date. But some of these objectives, particularly around decarbonisation, etc., they are longer term objectives, which is why in this case, I think that particular recommendation has been extended based on a discussion at CMT with Judith.
Yeah, of course. I just wanted to clarify. You're obviously looking at it to see if it's the only one that's had the extended request in, whether or not that was linked. So yes, totally understand. And as long as we think that's a realistic target, then that's great.
That's it, and that's what we want to see more of it. As you say, we want to see it more common across our recommendations, where if the deadline isn't realistic, making sure that we've sort of amended that to fit within what's achievable, if that makes sense. And is it achievable to reach it by that time scale? Most recommendations, to be honest, a lot of them are not going to be done within a year. Some take longer. So yeah, we want to see more of that if we can. Yeah.
And I was actually quite hard for the fact that actually thought about when they could get this done by, whereas most of the others don't have that. So as Steve said, I think that's actually what we should be aiming for, is get honest assessments of when this will be done by. So, yeah, we'll look forward to the next iteration. Thanks. Okay, the next papers are generated 9 and 10. There are no papers for these. I don't know who wants to give us a quick update. Do I look at you first, look at Barry, or do I look at Steve? or-
Steve, I think we've had some issues with from staffing perspective. I'm not wanting to go any further than that really. Is that they're being addressed as we speak, and we're hoping to bring the papers back for next audit. Governance and audit. Steve, I know you'll plan to.
Yeah, I think that's it really, is that we've had some issues with the officer concerned, who hasn't been well for the last number of weeks. He's been sick. And he's had some family issues as well. I think I'm sick there. So
Yeah.
So yes, so Ellis will be discussing with the office this week, and then to understand where we currently are. But the intention is that all the reports will be brought back then to the next scheduled meeting. So that's the Q1 and Q2 will be brought back.
Yeah.
So it has been looked at, and as you recall as well, if we look at the structures, and we have had issues with the policy element as well, with that officer was off on long-term sick. So there are a couple of issues which we're trying to work through at the moment.
It's been an ongoing issue, but it's something we're determined to put right, because we've given over the last 3 years at least really high prominence to the risk register, with all members being involved at some point. Or we want to get back to that position. It's just that we've had these issues.
Yeah.
I'm sure once we pass that, we'll get back to where we were, because there is a central pillar of governance being.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly right. Central pillar of governance is a really good phrase, and it absolutely is. So we wish the individual concerned the best in terms of his health. The concern for me was really about having kind of single point of failure and no one else being able to pick up this work. But I think it's been agreed now, it will come to our next meeting on the 4th of December. And we'll allocate a chunk of time to give a look at it, as we haven't seen it for quite some time. Okay,
Great question.
thank you. So that's item 9 and item 10, which takes us on to item 11, which is audit inquiries to those charged with governance and management. Steve Adele, shall I leave it to you to start with, and then I'll turn to our finance colleague, what it was colleagues here.
Okay, thank you, Chair. What we've basically got in this report is that this assists our auditors or Audit Wales with the audit of accounts for 22-23. So Audit Wales have sought views from the council on a number of areas impacting upon the actual audit of the accounts, and those that inspect of both management and those charged with governance issues. So paragraph 3.3 of the report then, that includes those inquiries of management, where those views have been sought, and they inspect of the financial reporting, in respect of related parties, laws and regulations, and the control environment, IT systems, risk and governance. And there's also been some questions and views sought in respect of those charged, just in charge of governance as well as the management. So included then, as part of this report, you have schedules of the responses for 22-23. And I would say they've been extended since what we've had over the last number of years, and it was quite a bit more involved, shall we say, for the 22-23 accounts. So I just won't go into those responses in any depth, but if I stop there, Chair, and ask if there are any questions.
That's really helpful, Steve. I'm used to seeing this for many, many years. And you get last year's comments and this year's comments, and there's almost no change, because the questions are the same and the answers are always the same. And the value of this thing was getting less and less. So I kind of see it's been a far longer document now. And I guess perhaps, Alice, it's worth just talking a little bit about why there's been such a substantial change in this. I think this is the first time I've seen it this one.
Yes, so it's something we have to thank ISO 315 for again, is this elongated inquiries of management, those type of governance. And I should point out, we've also sent a similar document to internal audit. So after the implementation of ISO 315, we took a fresh look at what we were asking and why. And as it's a bit more involved for the councils to respond this year, I think there's definite benefit in having those more substantial responses. So the next steps for us, now that, well, presuming that these get okayed by the committee, is that we'll look at these responses and build that into our audit approach as we continue to our financial audit work. So there's a bit of background behind why there are so many, but yeah, as you say, I think definitely worth having a relook at these this year.
Thank you, Alex. That's really helpful. And I guess the only question for me, Steve, is in terms of compiling this, did any of the responses cause you a, oh, we haven't done that? Or I can't see anything in here that says something like that, but is there anything that causes any problems? Because I'm guessing these are things you need to do the audit anyway.
Yes, I think that's right, Chair, is that I don't think there are any real issues as part of the audit, but it is a reminder, I suppose, of what we should be looking for. So, but no, I can't see any issues going forward with the audit.
Feels like a helpful checklist, frankly. So next steps is assuming we are content to endorse this document, but it formally gets sent to Audit Wales and get part of the audit done. Are we happy to so endorse? Lots of thoughts. Thank you.
Just say thanks as well to Steve and the team, because I know that was a real effort to get us the responses and in time for this committee. So just wanted to pass on my thanks to him and the team for doing that.
Yeah, as I said, it's the first time I've seen this, and I said on a couple of audit committees, it's the first time I've seen a document, so we're ahead of the game. So thank you much. Moving on to internal audit for us. All the internal audit, you think be quiet today. We tell you have the upper window, the spotlight has arrived, however. We looked at the progress against the plan. Lisa, I guess we're with you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is a report that we regularly bring to this committee, the progress against the internal audit plan. And the purpose of the report is to provide members with a position statement on our progress. So some background then at 3.1 of the report. The head of audit is responsible for developing a risk-based plan in accordance with public sector internal audit standards. This considers the risk management framework within the council, and there's also a requirement for the head of audit to review and adjust the plan throughout the year as needed. So the internal audit plan was submitted to this committee for consideration and approval on the 20th of June. And the plan outlined the audit assignments to be completed so that we can give an opinion at the end of the year. So 4.1 of the report refers to the current situation for the period 1st of April to the 13th of October. And there's an appendix to the report, Appendix A, which shows the status of each plan review, the audit opinion, and the number of high, medium, and low priority recommendations that have been made. What members will see new in this report is that we've set ourselves some internal performance targets to allow us to monitor the delivery of the plan throughout the year. So at 4.2, we've got some targets then which we've set for ourselves. So for Q1, we've set 10%, for Q2, 30%, for Q2, 50%, and for Q4, 80%. So section 4.3 of the report, it shows that our progress as of the 13th of October was 20%, which is slightly below the target that we have set ourselves. But I think it's key to, to give you a little bit of background in that we've got one member of the team on long-term sick. We've got one person on maternity leave, and we've also got some vacancies within the team. But just to reassure members that we have taken some steps to address this going forward. We've engaged with SWAP, an external audit provider, and they've taken on across Merthyr and RCT 16 audits. So there's 8 audits in Merthyr that they're doing and 8 in RCT, and 4 of the 8 for Merthyr are picked up before Christmas, so those are all planned in. We've also been out to advert on the vacancies. We had interviews for the position of auditor last week, and hopefully that's a position now that we'll be able to fill in coming weeks. Unfortunately, for the senior auditor role, we didn't shortlist, so the head of audit is looking to address this on an interim period to try and bridge that gap until we're in a position that we can appoint. And we also work with management to make sure that our resources for the year are prioritised. And table 2 then within the report shows the audit opinions that have been given to the 8 audits completed to report stage. And members will be reassured that 7 of these have been given either a substantial or a reasonable audit opinion. There is one piece of work which is still a draft report at the moment, and we've given that a limited assurance opinion. And within the report, we've given a little bit more information, the reasons why that we've given this a limited assurance audit opinion. When this is finalised, obviously it will come through to members as an information report. Also new in this report at section 4.7, we've separately detailed the 14 audits that were carried forwards from last year. So although they're in the main appendix of the report, we've also done a separate appendix just to show the status of those. And members will see that 28% of those have been completed to report stage, and there's a summary of the appendix then. To date this year, we have made 65 recommendations, and we will monitor those then and report back to committee in due course. But we've also got a separate report here today on internal audit recommendations, so I'll cover that off separately.
These are really helpful, really comprehensive, and actually I like the new format as well. Actually, really positive. Thank you. Just quickly for me, before I go forward up, and you know you separated out the carried forward ones into the new year, and you can see there were 14 listed there. The target for this year is to get 80% completed. Is there a risk, I guess, that we're forever carrying forward audits because that 20% will get carried forward next year, or would you just draw a line and says we're not going to carry forward, we're just going to reprogram, reschedule, whatever you want to call it? It becomes a rather messy process of having audits potentially could be a year or 2 old, you know, and scheduled from 2 years ago.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is that potential risk. Yeah, there is. But we risk assess on an annual basis. So we've got a portfolio of what we could potentially audit on an annual basis, and we do risk assess that. So sometimes something which was a higher priority in the previous year might be a lower priority in years moving forward. If it's the same priority, then we're included in the mix for the current year's plan as well. There's also a number of reasons why we're not achieving that particular audit. It could be our resources internally, and we have to take that on the chin. We also have to report that back into you. There could be issues with system changes within the authority or personnel within the authority not being available.
Okay.
So all of that is in the mix, but we're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can and give you the up-to-date information. But the key thing is that we do risk assess our audit plan on an annual basis. So things might fall off, but we're making sure that we're addressing the key priorities in that particular year.
Okay. And the follow-up question, and obviously Andrew, is given the resources and given where you are now, 20% of audits complete.
Yeah.
Are you going to get enough work done to get to the point where you can form an opinion, sort of be able to sort of say you've got sufficient coverage through the year?
Absolutely fair question, Chair. Yes is the short answer. Things always pick up. We've been doing this for a number of years, but things always pick up in Q3 and Q4, and we tend to catch up ourselves. As Lisa said, we've got some action. We've taken some action to address the shortfall in resources moving forward. So we're pretty confident that we'll get as many opinions done as we possibly can in Q3 and Q4.
Good, thank you. Questions? What do you colleagues?
Yes, in regards to the reports that have come in terms of some of the items that we're looking at, and I know they put on to the ModGov for us. For some reason, these information reports are not on there.
Yeah, the system wasn't working on Tuesday, something to do with they've moved the server.
Right.
They've moved the shortcut onto a different server, and because we're not Merthyr employees, they can't touch our laptops. So they had to give me instructions to do it. But in the meantime, I didn't want to waste any time, so I sent it out by email. Did you now get an email?
Right, maybe I've missed the email because obviously I would have
right,
looked at it, probably got it. That's no problem.
I did check against the information on the internet just to make sure I had every member, but I do apologise if I've missed you out.
That's no problem.
I haven't put them now in retrospect on issue manager.
I'll just have to go through my emails and find that.
Leave that till we get to January 15th. We have a
Yeah.
chance to get that. Okay. So, okay. Thank you. The only obvious question for me is the report, which is currently a limited assurance although in draft, which is in respect of the Blessed Carlo Acutis Catholic School. There's quite a number of high level, high priority issues identified, 8 in total. That's of concern. Obviously, it's draft, so we haven't been had the report shared with us yet.
Mhm.
What has been the finding, the response of the school in terms of it's a new school and therefore these are teething, or is it more fundamental issues?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think it's key to mention to begin with that the timing of this school, I think it's the right timing to undertake the audit, and the schools were welcoming of the audit because it's the start of a new chapter for them to come in together. So it wasn't something that they didn't want, it was something that they did want to work with audit, alongside audit, where they're very engaging in the process, very helpful. The findings were fed back verbally, and they're working with audit to, they welcome those findings. The school has got difficulties in that it's over more than one site at the moment, but they are going to be coming together. So I think there's an element of, it was almost like doing 4 audits in one. So it was always going to be a bigger piece of work. But I think to reassure members that, they are cooperating, they are positive about the audit report and working with us moving forward to put right what they need to put right to get to the point in time when we can give them a reasonable assurance.
So there's going to be a follow-up at some point to be scheduled.
There would be. At the moment, the report is in draft. So I know that the auditor who undertook the audit is working with the school in respect of the management responses and target dates. So as soon as that report is finalised, it'll find its way through to this committee. In accordance with our usual procedures, we carry out a follow-up review. The timing of that follow-up will depend on the target dates that the school provides us with, because once that target date is passed, we don't go straight in. We need to give them a little bit of time to bed in those new processes, so we've got something new to look at. So we will factor that into our planning at a point in time whenever it's suitable for the follow-up to be undertaken.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
And just to add to what Lisa said, in terms of our normal protocol, if we get any limited or no assurance opinions, then we'll generally try and follow that up in a 6 to 12 month period, depending on what the nature of that audit. Within the school, it can be a little bit more difficult because of school holidays, etc. But that's what we're aiming for. So given where we are, that will feed into next year's audit plan.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, thanks for that. No escape though, Lisa. We now move on to internal audit recommendations. Agenda item 13.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is an update on the position statement of internal audit recommendations that have been made, that have been implemented, and those which are outstanding. So at section 3.2 of the report, just explains that at the conclusion of an audit, if it is felt improvements should be made, recommendations are included in the report, and recipients are asked to provide a response to indicate whether they agree with the recommendation, how they plan to implement the recommendation, and a target date. And then to assist managers in prioritising attention, they are either classified as a high, a medium, or a low priority. And table 1 within the report shows the priority ratings that we use and the recommendation categorisation. Section 3.4 of the report, we detail that to make sure that focus is maintained on key issues within internal audit. The audit team will report progress on the implementation of high and medium priority recommendations. And once the target date for implementation has been passed, the officers are contacted and we ask them to provide us with feedback for the high and medium priorities. It is the responsibility of the operational manager to implement all of the recommendations, including those which are low priority. So the current position is detailed at 4.1, and there's also an appendix to the report, Appendix A. Within the report, we have 2 tables, Table 2 and Table 3. So this shows the status of recommendations for audits completed in the current year, and also for audits that have been completed prior to this. So we've got 10 outstanding recommendations from prior to 2023-24. These are detailed at Appendix B. What I would like to add today is that we've had some further feedback 4 of those have been fully implemented. 1 has been partially implemented with a new target date given, and we're still awaiting responses on the other 5. So I think just making the point that recommendation monitoring is always a constant moving target. It depends on the timing of the report and contact with various service departments and managers. So that's always a moving target, but we're always checking those recommendations and feeding back. There are 11 recommendations from last year with a future target date, but this is something that we are happy with, as the final reports were issued within the past 6 months. So the situation will be monitored, and we'll make sure there's no undue delays then. And I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has on the recommendation report.
Thank you, Lisa. That's a really helpful summary of where we are. I was initially rather nervous when I saw 10 overdue recs. I looked at Appendix B, the dates in there are all end of August, end of September, and so, you know, given we're in the middle of October, that was sort of, considering CRT has been really helpful. With the ones that aren't yet due for completion, and there's quite a few in, do you get a heads up if they think they are not going to meet the target? Do people come back to you, or do we just wait until the target is missed and then we do chase? Because it would be nice if they were said, we're struggling with this date, can we extend before they get to the deadline? That's something that happens.
A little bit both, really. Our process in place, the auditors are responsible for monitoring up, following up the recommendations for audits that they've completed. So they have regular calendar reminders at the start of every month to extract the information from the system and follow up. We do have occasions where people come to us beforehand and say, here's an update on my recommendations, or I need a little bit more time, this has been partially implemented. So it's a little bit of both. It's probably the majority is when we chase, but that's not to say we don't have occasions where they don't come to us in advance. That does happen sometimes.
Thanks. As I often say, that the issue with internal audit recommendation, of course, is the dates are set by the individual managers themselves. So the failure to meet them is very much a shooting yourself in the foot. You set your date, which you didn't then meet, which feels like something you really should be able to do. So I'm pleased that some people are responding to you, but the nature of the beast is always that it does take some time. Thank you for the update, Lisa. It's really helpful. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. That's item 15. Item 14, healing of Home Street, features where we get to the forward work program. We've had some conversations about how the forward work program might be changing already today, but Helen will give.
No, that's fine. Agenda item 14 is the forward work programme, which is a report we bring to each meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. What I would like to say before I go into this report is that this was written at a point in time. So there are 8 items listed as proposed agenda items for the 4th of December. However, as some of the reports that were on the agenda today didn't come to this meeting, these will be added on to a future committee meeting. And also section 4.3 of the report also refers to the special meeting of the committee that will be needed in November. So of course the next meeting is November, whereas this report details the meeting as being the 4th of December. And you know, from earlier discussions we said that both will now go ahead. But as it stood at the time, the proposed agenda for the 4th of December is detailed at section 4.3 of the report. So we've got a quarterly update on corporate risks, the rolling programme risk update, and this one will be education. We've got the self-assessment final report, the annual complaints report, the ombudsman complaints report. Again, the forward committee forward work programme, we'll have our internal audit information reports and the temporary housing solutions update, and also some of the reports from today that will be carried forward.
Thank you. So yeah, just noted agenda item 9 today was quarterly update, corporate risks Q1. So that'll be either incorporated into one paper with Q2. And also the rolling programme forward risks was going to be on capacity. And we got one scheduled in here for education. So whether we take both of those and everything would be helpful. It's the self-assessment report is scheduled in here, and I don't know whether that would sit better alongside the accounts meeting. I don't know, some views. possibly. I think it'll be available by then.
I'm not sure, Chair. I'll have to check on that one. I think the aim was to try to get it to that, or
It was to get it to this
Yeah,
one,
it's
and
not-
it was slightly out, so we've decided to defer it then to the next one, so I think you'll be okay.
Okay, so there's a bunch of work to hear on the accounts. We have 2 meetings a week apart. I think it's impossible to fit all the work into one meeting without so we're kind of losing our minds at the end of it. So I think we'll keep those 2 meetings separately. But where the exact split of what and in which ones, I'm happy to listen to your advice. Yes, sure.
Some of reports we mentioned earlier is the wellbeing objective and
Yes,
all its information, so whichever one.
Yeah, the fourth one's published already, isn't it? So that's definitely available.
Yeah, and what the wellbeing objective one is the other one.
Okay. So they can go onto the December meeting as
Yeah,
well.
if you could feed that through to us, we can include it on the programme.
Yeah, we'll do, yeah, obviously. Okay, so
Thanks.
Okay, that was item 14. Item 15, as Jamie just mentioned, there are 4 reports have been shared or not.
Sorry, yes, I did send it.
I know.
I've got it now.
I'm sure you did, Helen. I'm sure you
I
did.
have to check.
And noting there are 4 reasonable assurance reports. There's the question for members is if there's anything in any of those reports they want to discuss here, or indeed refer to any of the various scrutiny committees within the authority. Happy to listen to any of these.
I would be interested, Chair, in your school visits, perhaps being put towards the LGS scrutiny committee. Just in terms of I know that they're only medium in terms of the recommendations, but looking into it, I'm not too worried about the timescales. I've been involved with many a trip that would be a 2-week window, which doesn't meet the time frame. There's the fact that we've got EVCs that are marking off things that are not correctly being populated and done in the right way. And just to ask a question, in terms of any off-site issue that might happen hypothetically and a claim was put through, would that go onto the school budget or come out of the authority? Not sure.
I'm not sure.
We'll take that back and check.
Yeah.
It's probably something that the insurance company would need to pick up. We would obviously check that.
Yeah, because obviously my concern would be if we've got an issue such as this and things are not being filled out correctly.
Yeah.
I've been in situations even recently, a very young person, I've taken away really nasty dislocation. If that evolved information is in there, we're open and liable. So it's something the schools have got to be on top of, especially with the current budget issues as well. So I would like to see this get recommended to LGS.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll certainly take that on board.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Again, for me, my eye was focused obviously on there's one high priority recommendation and the safeguarding one high priority and the waste services. So I'll get into specifics obviously, and anybody watching this haven't seen the detail of it. The safeguarding arrangement, the one high recommendation was about DBS checks. So if you just give us some context about that.
Right, okay. The finding within the report, I think that the high priority was given because we identified on the information that we were given a start date, which was before a DBS check date. So from the evidence, it appeared that a school had started an employer at the school without having a DBS or a risk assessment in place. So we prioritised that as a high priority, and there were some other issues with dates. But when the management responses came back, it was found to be the case that the school sends the information through to the council, to HR, and HR would input in the date onto the system as the date of the receipt of the information rather than the employee start date. So it wasn't actually the case that somebody started in post without the necessary checks. It's more of an administrative when the system is updated. So we've got some assurances for that. But we did, in the sample, we originally had a sample of 5 schools. One didn't engage with us over the action short of strike. So our sample was 4 schools, 3 primary and 1 secondary school. And the sample was about 113 new starters. So I think, we found a small number of errors, and they were due to the the dates that were input onto the system, but the management response has come back to say that, you know, we will put the date on the system as the actual start date rather than the date we get the information.
It's really helpful, Lisa, just to understand that it isn't about sort of children being at risk by somebody who hasn't been DBS checked, but it's about making sure the processes properly reflect the reality of it.
Yeah.
And finally, for me, the waste services one, I think is worth flagging up that there were some concerns around the service going back and beginning of my time here for a couple of years, I guess. So to see a reasonable assurance report is actually quite a good news story. But there is still one high level finding, that's not what you're saying, recommendation finding, which relates to.
So it was some receipt books have been mislaid. We can't get to the bottom of where they've gone. But what the service has done is they've put a thorough reconciliation in place. So if we were to issue any bins, we would expect to see the income of those bins. So if a receipt was given and cash in hand, we'd have those bins, you know, that we'd have a record of those bins being issued, and the reconciliation wouldn't be there for the income.
Also, you take cash anymore.
No, again, that process has ceased, but if we've still got people going out there with a receipt book, you know, hopefully there wouldn't have been a bin issue, so it should be working. The system should be working.
So encouraging, thank you. Thank you much. Item 16, reflections and evaluation of meeting. I quite like to be doing this meeting here. If I can see everybody, which is a pleasant change. So I don't know whether we have to use the chamber. I quite like being here.
We did trial it about 2 years ago. We trialed it in the committee rooms 3 and 4.
I'll ask our colleague whether we can do it somewhere that isn't the chamber, particularly if everyone's turning up like this. It's terrific.
Great, I'd several times, Chair.
Brent, how was it for you?
It's behaving now.
Fantastic. No, in all seriousness, Chair, I'm easy either way, whether we're in the committee room or in the chamber. I've got no preference either way.
I think, frankly, we transact our business better here. That's my personal opinion. I agree. Something like that. Yeah. Okay, we'll see what we can do going forward. Thank you. The last part of reflections and evaluations. I cannot believe it's an end of an era for Steve Jones.
At last. As he goes to spend months.
He's sick of the farewell tour. I've
been saying so long for December.
Steve joined us authority when I was already working here. We worked on this 31 years ago, so I've known Steve for 31 years. And it's been a pleasure to know you, and good luck and best wishes for the next part of whatever lies in front.
Yes. Thank you, Martin.
Man and boy.
Yes, I just wish you well over the next number of years. I know it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
But I do wish you well.
Thanks, Steve.
And thank you very much, Chair.
Any other business? There is no any other business. Date of next meeting, 27th of November. Back here in this room. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair.
Following up from what Steve said is in fact over the next few years, sustainability assessments we're going to do. I think it's down to June.
Numbers might seem fine. We were, I don't think that's not fine, but. It's more.